Another day in Studio 51. Thank you for joining us. It's an exciting day. This is not, don't judge me on this intro music yet, Liz. This is still standard. All right, this is the early part of the show, so we're working it out. And intro music is one of those things that we haven't figured out yet. But it's a big day. It's Studio 51. Lakers go for a championship tonight. Championship.
Dodgers won last night.
Championship number 17.
Dodgers brought out the broom.
Dodgers win. That's Brian Schlesinger in the newsroom, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Richard Sarvate to my right, and Liz Martinez from the NFL Network.
Hi.
Yes, Liz Martinez in the house. We're going to get to you in a moment. Liz and Richard Sarvate to my right.
Hello.
How you doing, Richard?
To the right.
Los Angeles.
How you doing, Richard? You good?
I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. We have Richard is our, and just so you know, Liz, Richard is our man of the people, our resident man of the people. He's relatively new to sports, so we try to always make sure he's here for anything sports.
Yes.
So you know, not only can we teach from all of our mistakes,
Yes.
so that he can learn to root for the correct teams, being the Los Angeles Lakers. Oh,
Yeah,
wrong.
that was correct.
That was the wrong
No.
seat. We're
Air horn. Air horn.
All right,
We're
and,
working it-
and now we could do the other sound
This-
because Richard bet against me and my Los Angeles Chargers and won,
Yes.
though.
I won,
yes, the Chargers.
He won his first blind bet.
but I didn't feel good about it at all.
And we'll get to that. That'll be our next episode. We do once a week. This is not necessarily a sports show. This is a talk show, but about everything.
Yeah.
And that's why we bring in wonderful guests, and we do once a week a sports gambling fantasy show, and we force Richard to make one bet based on our
Force him.
analysis.
Out of
It's
ignorance.
forced. And he's 1-0.
I am
1-0.
100% accurate on predicting football games.
Yes,
so.
100%. Like he.
That's
but-
how these things work.
Yes, he's much better than I. He's much better than I. And Liz,
Yeah.
let's get to you.
All right.
Liz Martinez from the NFL Network, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
In the under construction Studio 51, like Area 51, not Studio 54, just to be clear.
Clear.
You know, it's more of an alien motif.
I like the vibe.
Thank
Eclectic.
you. Well, I mean, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's thank you for joining in the infancy.
Yes.
And let me get to you. First question, I guess most importantly, are you a Lakers fan?
I am a Lakers
Okay,
fan.
good. I was hoping I didn't alienate you right there.
Yeah, no way. I grew up next to the Forum, basically. You know,
Inglewood.
so close. Yes,
Word
in Inglewood,
up.
California. So close you could hear shows, you know, the Rolling Stones, whoever were playing, you could hear it faintly. So the Lakers were always omnipresent. You know, at school, you get the free calendars, all the swag, you know, maybe if you're broke enough, the Lakers come and visit you, and you're like, yay. So that was one of those things that being in the city was like, okay, you got to be a Lakers fan.
Yeah, totally. I've been in LA for a long time, and I believe I bleed blue with the Dodgers. My love for the Lakers runs super deep. Do you believe Anaheim? Do you believe the Angels are from Los Angeles or Anaheim?
I think L.A.
Oh, boo!
Anaheim. Look, the only thing I associate with Anaheim is Disneyland. For
Perfect.
me.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or Knott's Berry Farm for their fried chicken and waffles.
Yeah, I've actually never been to Knott's Berry Farm.
What?
I've never been to Knott's Berry Farm. Not Scary Farm.
That's a good one.
It's what I hear in the winter, in
I
the
like it.
October this month being Halloween.
I've
I
never
don't
been
think
either.
they're doing it this
Yeah,
year
yeah,
unless
yeah.
it's
yeah,
outdoors.
Yeah. Well, it is outdoors, but who's going into amusement parks these
Yeah.
days?
I have also never been.
But, I mean,
Which is
Disney
funny 'cause
World
I'm
is
born
full
and
on.
raised in L.A. I've never been to Knott's, really.
Sounds like you need a show from Knott's.
Yeah,
Like,
there you go.
saying it live.
So hold on, let me tell you. I don't want to get too deep into Anaheim talk. Oh yes, but before, God, thank you, Brian. This is
thank God, you know, it's not Disneyland isn't our sponsor, but it's pretty damn close.
no. Do you have any animals, Liz?
I have a cat,
You have a cat.
Safita.
Sofita, that's right, a cat.
Sofita.
No dogs.
Muy
Could be-
bonita.
Our sponsor is actually Alpha Dog Poop Bags. You were going to leave here with your own Alpha Dog poop bags if you had a dog.
In coronavirus, poop bags could mean so many different things. So,
Whoa.
yeah.
Well, these are strictly for poop. I've never used them for any other
but
reason.
Do you need a dog? Is what I'm saying.
Well, I got a Corona dog. I got a dog because I was depressed.
Really?
Well, as a comedian, because my industry died.
Yeah.
Like, let me be clear. Like, I thought there was a time last year where I thought I was funny enough and smart enough and had my shit together enough that I could make it as a comedian. You know? And then the world blows up. I was literally, remember when the first basketball game got canceled? It was Minnesota versus
100%.
Utah. Rudy Gobert's touching the mics.
Yep.
Well, I was performing across the street in Salt Lake City. Sick as a dog. This was in March 13th, 14th.
Yep.
Sick as a dog. All right, but the show must go on at that time. I didn't know. You don't know. You know, we had no idea what things were.
So was it just the flu? Or was
Well,
it
listen. They canceled the show. Everything got canceled. I flew home that night. I should have never been on a plane, right? I mean, I shouldn't. I traveled home, got here. Nobody really knew what was going on. My doctor's office. I called them, told them, I was like, yo, I got 101 fever. They're like, don't come here. Go to the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, and my girlfriend's a pulmonologist at UCLA. And she, took care of me a little bit, this and that. And I mean, she didn't come,
Right.
didn't expose her, but talked me through things. I was basically isolated for a month.
Wow.
So I never got a positive corona test. But, I have a really rare blood type, so I give blood. And I've been tested for the antibodies, and I no longer show antibodies. But they say it could ramp up if I get exposed again.
Sure.
So it's like, but the thing is, most doctors are like, we just don't know yet. We need time to study. We need, we need more time and less politics.
Totally.
To really answer how bad this is.
Oh yeah, they need years to know, obviously, right? Like, so you had it or didn't have it, and now 5 years from now, it's like, oh, your lungs are like fucked. So there's a lot of things they don't know yet. It could be in 5 years you don't show any, symptom or having had it, but there is a lot that the disease needs time.
Sure. And did you now working at the NFL Network? Let's get to like how has Corona affected your job, the workplace? Do you still go into the office?
No, I've been out of the office since probably March 13th. That was a Friday. I remember it was Friday.
Yes, exactly. That's what
Yeah, so that was the day they were like, no. So
that's so funny. Yes. Yeah.
I'm thinking, so all of the 2019-2020 season, right, we were in the office. And right around December, there was some talk about, do you hear this this thing coming? Like, I don't know. Like, there was a guy, one of the guys, we always talk a little politics. We always talk a little funny. He's like, you think this virus is going to kill us? And I was like, no, I'll get it under control. You remember H1N1? Yeah. But yeah, within a month later, it was like, nah, you're not going back to the office. And if I would have known, I have shit in there I can't get. And they're just like, look, no, we're not going to let you go get your
you
kids'
can't
art.
even get sanitized, sterile, nothing.
They have reduced it now to just essential people, like on the production side that are taping, and on a game day, if you have to be in the building. But otherwise, they're not. And for those people, they're being tested, and they have to wear these little bracelets throughout the day when they're on the campus to contact trace. So
you're the entire time you're at the NFL Network, you are totally you're monitored.
You're monitored. So then that way, if so-and-so gets sick, they know you came into close contact with that person. And I feel like, whoa, this is going to be just the standard now. They're saying, oh, just during this period of, not knowing. But I think things like this set the tableau for what companies are going to do in the future.
Well, I'm really curious how the office environment's going to change in general.
100%.
My mother works for Lockheed Martin, which is, I would say, is similar to the NFL Network when you talk about a giant corporation that really buttons up. We watch. She no longer goes to work, and they're thinking about doing remote office working just 4 days a week, but you're working 10, 12 hours those days.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. It's. I don't know. Does your job? Would you want to work in an environment like that?
The thing is, for what I do, which is,
and you're a project manager. What does that mean?
So I handle the closed captioning for the entire league, all the clubs, and the league site. So my team is literally the ones at home because we were already a remote team. So we hired them, we train them, they're working from home, and they're doing captioning our VOD, which is like not live games, not live shows, but anything that's taped and edited and sent to us from the teams. So this was like 3 years ago when I got this project, and they hated that it was remote. The reason for it being is that there was always a lack of trust on whether people really work when they're at home. And, you know, my point was like, we don't have the space in the current Culver City spot where we are until we move next to SoFi. And so we had no choice. And I was like, look, you could see if someone's captioning or not. It's quantifiable. So they were like, look, don't make a big deal out of it. People get jealous. So we've been doing it. So I was sort of working from home and in the office. So on game days and during the season, I'd come in. And so I had the best of both worlds already. But what coronavirus did was just like catapult them into everybody being remote. So really at first there was like an over like Zoom meeting. It was just too much and people couldn't work because they were so busy trying to watch if you were working. So after like a month of that, the bosses and everybody just kind of like, look, we got to just let people
got
work,
used to it.
and we got to draft and we got to figure out how to do it. And so I think there's been some good benefit from it in the sense that they realize, oh, okay, people can be trusted. We are paying them and they are going to work regardless if it's half in pajamas and half a top or like, you know, whatever the case is. So they have a better understanding that you can trust employees. So I think that was a good thing. But no, you miss the camaraderie, and you, especially when you work in sports, part of that fun part is watching those games in the room together in the game control room on Sunday.
Absolutely. I truly believe that one of the great things about live events is the interactivity that you get with the person next to you, whether you are whether you're rooting for the same thing or cheering for
Especially
whatever.
if you're not rooting for the same thing. Those are great.
Yeah,
you know?
whether you're rooting for a turnover in fantasy, like whatever it may be.
Exactly.
You know, I think that aspect, there's going to be a lot of that gets lost on a certain generation because they're not going to get to experience it the way we did.
I mean, Twitter's like work remotely, period. Like he doesn't want to have an office anymore for them. And I think, what was it, Pinterest?
Someone just announced
$89 million to cut their contract. Like when you pay 90-something million to get out of an office lease, you're just not going back to it.
Wow. Yeah. That's where was Pinterest based out of?
I think San Francisco. It was like, and so that's why it was so expensive, right, to break it. But also they're just like, this isn't a sustainable business model because
the
it
lease
looks like
might
we're
have
gonna
cost
have more
them.
viruses.
Yeah, the lease might have cost them half a billion over the course of the lease.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
My God! So your environment has really changed. So
Very much so.
do you think? And yeah, granted, but would a vaccine, would things just go back to normal? Or do people really? Is this the new model? Do you think?
I think yes and no, because even in the new building, right, you would think, okay, great, you're going to build this thing next to SoFi, and SoFi is so amazing. And then you see the plans, and it was like a big rectangle. I was like, wow, they really put a lot of, like, design into this. And I remember early talks about the move, like, a year ago, and it being like there's a grand staircase, and we can, like, stop and have chats on the staircase, which I thought was very dangerous. I was like, is HR consulted about this? But so forget the staircase. So the building was set up so that nobody has offices. So you had a bunch of, like, senior level directors pissed, like my boss and whatnot, because, this Google model is just open, like cubicle land. And so the VPs have offices now. And I just don't think they plan for the number of people even. So it's sort of, for them, I think, a good thing that they can kind of look and see, who do we not care if they're in the building?
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things that, like what I do on a game day, it's really like, I don't want to say sketchy. It's difficult to do because my other team is the dynamic insertion team. So we are putting digital ads over all of the, like, anything you don't watch on TV. If you're watching football on your phone, on a tablet, on a Roku, whatever, we're putting digital ads. They double sold them. We're not the only ones doing it in MLB, NBA.
Yeah.
So DAI, like dynamic ad insertion, is huge. So you usually have people come on site and their Ethernet, they're ported into our VPNs. We're doing this remotely from their homes. So, knock on.
That's
think
real
that's
wood.
wood.
That's
Okay.
real wood.
You found
Yeah,
it.
yeah. We've been great. Nothing really
Has
crazy.
any of the football
but-
teams getting like coronavirus? Because like the Tennessee Titans, it wasn't just 10 players; it was also the staff.
Of course, the staff,
So,
and now the Jets happen.
You know, I feel like
mean,
the NFL should be like stepping back a little bit and kind of evaluating.
Well,
like, what they're doing.
well, there's two things, and
Well,
we're gonna
there's
get to.
office protocol and there's game protocol. Like,
Yeah,
like the
and we're-
league. Yeah.
They're also investigating. The NFL has very, very top-notch investigators, and they're investigating Tennessee to see if they did break any NFL protocol. And if they find out they did, they might have to forfeit that game.
Oh, they did. They did break protocol. They know that now. But
They do?
But I don't.
But
think,
forfeit's a tough thing to make a team do.
Yeah, you're not. I don't think they're gonna do it this time. But it's like, this is a warning to all of you 32 teams. Don't do this.
Because nobody wants that F word forfeit. I mean, there's too much money.
Ben
There's too much.
Roethlisberger might want it.
Well,
Like, he feels like he was screwed. So I think the Steelers might feel differently. Mike Tomlin would never
Yeah.
say that. But Ben,
They would take. Yeah, they would
he's a
totally.
baby.
So your time. How long have you been at the NFL Network then?
It's my 6th season this
Sixth season.
Yeah.
And where were you before there?
Before there, I was at an acting school. I was a managing director of an acting school for like 9 years in Hollywood.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Which acting school?
Little tiny school you never heard of called Theater of Arts.
Theater of Arts.
But
Sounds
yeah,
very actorial.
It is very actorial. I don't know what I was doing there. It's too long of a story to
And
tell
then
ya.
so was sports a passion of yours then?
Yes, sports
Oh,
was a
so it
passion
was.
from like college. Like when I started watching football, I was about 12.
Where'd
and
you go to
really,
school?
To college?
Yeah.
Out here, a little private school called Woodbury University. in
Theater of the
Burbank.
Arts.
Yeah, all these little podunks, they're not really real. They're not really real places. No, but I started loving football around 12, and really because you're just watching Channel 11, and then it's like, shit, there's always a Dallas game on, because that's when they were good.
So then who'd you fall in
And
love with?
I fell in love with
Because there's no
Dallas.
Rams. There's no Rams.
No, I fell in love with Dallas. That's the way I taught myself the game, because they were such a prolific offense. It's how I taught myself how the
This
rules
would've been,
worked. 90.
Michael Irvin.
The
Troy
triplets.
Aikman.
The triplets. I
Troy
have a Troy
Aikman.
Aikman jersey. That was my first
Oh,
jersey.
really?
Yep, got the number 8.
And
But
Michael is a NFL Network
Yeah.
person. Have you ever got the
I've
opportunity
been
to
in
meet?
a hallway with him, and when I tell you, look, I hope it's all natural. But he is a very excitable man.
He is.
That
He
is not
sat,
fake.
He sat behind me on a flight, and he was, seemed very nice. I never got the opportunity to.
Yeah. But if people you meet there, the only other person who was working, I think, with them and no longer is that of note would be Reggie Wayne, and that was a really weird story. How I met him. There's an annual holiday party. I didn't go to the first one because I was a seasonal person. I didn't think that was for us. You're like, eh.
Then second
Second year, I was like, yeah, I'm going. Yeah, I should have went the first time.
free booze.
Free booze, free swag. It's all great. So I go, and one of these other senior director types was like, this is a great place to meet people. You can just go up to anybody you want. Who you guys want to meet. So me and this guy were like, hey, Reggie Wayne's over there, because he went to the University of Miami. And so did Reggie Wayne. I didn't know that. I was like, oh, all right. Yeah, I like the Colts. That was my team after Dallas that I fell in love with. So I was obviously an offensive girl. Love Peyton.
Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Damn
so
right.
This guy, director guy goes, yeah, so we're thinking he's going to go intro us. And so we say Reggie Wayne's over there. He goes, walk over and say hello. And we're just like, oh. And then he gets
you can
up.
do that?
Right. He gets up and goes, you'll have better luck if she goes with you, which was like,
Huh.
oh, okay.
All
Womp
right.
womp. So we go, and he's standing there with his presumably a date. I don't know, some Asian woman. And we go, Reggie, we work at the network, and we think you're really great. We just wanted to say hi. And then it was really rough. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And then I go, and this is Alex. He went to the University of Miami. And it was like, whoa, like they started throwing up the U, and it was just like all love. And I go, well, and I have a Colts tattoo. And I just lift up the back of my neck, my hair. And he's like, Yeah, there it is. So then it was cool. Like the ice was broken.
Wow, you had to throw your tattoo
I
out,
had to
though.
throw my whole tattoo into it. I salvaged it because this guy. So really, he was the key. I was not the key. Like Reggie Wayne didn't really care, but it was about the you. So that was like fun. But otherwise, people kind of keep to themselves. It's like the production side is the production side, and we're like the digital media side. So it's like little factions.
And have you noticed the viewing has really then it's gotten really off of standard cable and moved to a lot of different formats?
A lot of different formats, for sure. I mean, they're just now learning that you can package old VOD that people will want, like other distributors, right? So the NFL's just coming late to like the streaming and the Netflix party side of things.
Really? So
That's
so there is a demand for
that's exciting news.
that is well because
Hey, you heard it here first.
think about it.
Yeah.
There's very little access to old games and
Right.
stuff on
Yeah.
all the platforms, and
Yeah.
in a time when content is needed,
Yes.
very
Yes.
needed.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting.
Yeah,
that's
coming.
a really interesting avenue where they could actually. You could probably pay for subscribers to look at old games and
I would
maybe
pay
even
to,
have new commentary on old games.
I would pay to watch like historical games, like Miami Dolphins, the famous team or whatever.
That won 16-0.
Yeah. I would,
72. I don't know
72
how good
$.
that quality is. I mean,
Well, no,
NFL
they-
Films might have
Yeah,
that.
NFL Films they have
100% they have that.
they have ton and that's that NFL Films is actually based
I
out
like
of
that
Cherry
idea.
Hill.
Yes,
Right?
I
Leave
love
Sable's
Cherry
still
Hill.
around so that he can.
That's
he
where we
can
used to
tell
go
us
buy the
what's going
booze
on.
when I lived in Philly.
Yeah. All right. So so I actually have more questions for you and your
Okay.
career.
Sure.
We're going to break this up, though, because I want to figure out how to get into it. You're super wonderful, Liz Martinez.
Aw.
But before too long, let's break to the newsroom with the one and only. Oh, man. See, this is, like I say, it's work in progress, Liz. Don't you expect...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
My name
Brian.
is Brian Schlesinger.
No. Here we go. And then you're going to have to
Evening
decide which one of these backgrounds you like. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. Brian Schlesinger with the news.
I need a little more.
it's a very subtle news.
Yeah,
intro.
it's very
I
genuine.
Okay,
think
then
that
there's
was
this.
kind of
Hold
like a
on.
rap.
Then there's, wait.
It's not breaking news.
I'm
It's
gonna start
just some
singing.
news.
Some subtle news.
This seems a little more
toothpicks are
breaking,
down.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys heard, but last night FBI agents they foiled a kidnapping of
Yeah.
the Michigan governor Whitmer, which I think is very interesting.
The faces of these gentlemen are on the screen.
And they do not look nice.
The main boys.
And
Because best and brightest.
the name
All white, by the way.
of their group, which is also not nice, and I'm looking for
We
it.
did confirm that they are not fans of the Brian Moreno Show.
Oh, well.
I know.
For
I'm looking for
taste.
listeners anywhere, though. Just to be clear, I
We
was
threw
not.
a bone out there.
I was
It
not
just didn't
saying
catch it.
no.
To date, our fans have committed no crimes.
Yes, to date that I know. Yes. So 13, 12 Michigan residents and 13 people charged.
Wow.
And the name of the group is what? Brian
Like
Schlesinger?
The Weekend Warriors or something. I'm looking
The
for it. I
Weekend
can't find it. It's
Warriors.
Nah, it's better than that. It's even better.
All right. So
The Wolverine Watchmen.
the Wolverine Watchmen. So I guess my question for you, Liz,
Yes, sir.
is why is Michigan so fucked up?
Why is Michigan so fucked up? I don't think Michigan is fucked up.
You
know?
don't? I would disagree.
Well, you mean because this happened there, because there's so much like distrust of
The
the
government.
government there.
I mean, everything
Okay,
from
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Flint
okay.
water
Sure,
to them.
Sure. Yeah, why is Michigan so fucked up? You're right. It is fucked up. It's just, it's the state that we know, right? There's bad water in Compton. There's bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just
Sure, it is,
rough.
but I think certain places. God, in California and Los Angeles is not perfect by any stretch, but certain
No.
places, the corruption just runs so rampant,
Yeah.
and people do things that are almost unconscionable.
Okay.
And the way money has been taken
Yeah.
from from the actual residents of
Yeah.
Michigan, and the way some of the laws have actually stifled business from the car
Yeah.
business to other things. I find that state, like I played hockey and did a little time up there. I talk about it like it was a prison sentence.
So you did your bid. You did your bid up
so
there.
I did my bid, and I was just curious. Richard, any thoughts on the state of Michigan?
Yeah, well, people leave Michigan, Like, I mean, you don't hear, like,
That
about
is
people
true.
flocking to Michigan. If you are ready to get an education, you go to
do this
LA
thing.
or New York. And
Yeah.
But I also don't understand 13 people. Look, my mother's from Bogota, Colombia. All right,
Oh,
and
Colombiana.
so kidnapping was a
Right,
thing.
Right.
Yeah, and you don't get 13 or 12 of your best friends
Yeah,
and
yeah,
family
yeah.
involved.
Probably could have
You
given
keep it
her
tight.
some. Yeah, you
Yeah.
probably could have given her some tips.
Yeah, you don't talk about it. You don't
Yeah, 'cause there's too many
go to have
people.
lunch and then go, well, maybe we should, Yeah, too many people. But Oregon's another little problematic state. I think it's because
Absolutely.
it just, you start to peel back the roots, right? And then it exposes like, oh, all these laws that are still on the books. Like,
Well-
oh, they purposely kept it from being integrated. And yet this small little part of Portland got integrated. And we all think it's like really cool in breweries and kumbaya, but it's not.
oh
But
my God,
see, that's
I
the thing.
hate Portland.
Yes, Portland that is the division because the laws were changed to make them more liberal in Portland as opposed to the rest of the
Right,
state.
Right.
Wow, they have actual militia. I don't.
Hey,
I don't
let's
like
not talk
militia.
shit about Portland, okay? Because my friend Randy lives there. You know Randy.
Of course.
And
I
it's
know
his
Randy.
birthday today. So
Oh,
shout
wow,
out to
wow,
Randy.
wow.
Happy
Shout
birthday.
Out to Randy.
Happy, yeah.
Spellbound.
Happy birthday, Randy. You live in far too liberal of a city, and it's going the wrong direction. They have like intentional communities there, that's where people just like they use their shit as fertilizer and then grow vegetables in it. Portland is the only place where they do that.
Wow.
I have if they want to put their poop in bags, I have a
I was
sponsor.
gonna say,
I actually have a sponsor that could
There's a
help.
bag for that.
Alpha Dog Poop Bags, 100% compostable. One time I said combustible, which is different.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
which is different. So now let me get back to you, Liz. This is what I wanted to get to how you got to the NFL Network, but I also, and I think this is for a lot of women of all different ages out there, like some of these questions, because I grew up and my parents got divorced at an early age, and my mom, she worked very hard. She in predominantly male environments. She had to fight through a lot of predispositions about glass ceilings
Sure.
and how to behave as a woman.
How to behave if being kidnapped, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
Yeah,
this
you
is
gotta know
later. This
that.
is later on. No. This is later on. She, left Columbia when she was 21 or so. Went to college and work. So I guess my question is back to you. Like, coming from, say, I guess the theater world and moving into the NFL Network, which is, like I say, a male-dominated fraternity, I would say. The NFL Network, the NFL is maybe the NFL being more corporate. What have you had? What main struggles have you had to overcome? Because I know what strong-willed, independent women have to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely probably better now for a young woman who wants to get into sports. There's a lot more people than just Pam Oliver, I think, like when I was interested in it. So you see more examples, and maybe for them, they feel like, oh, okay, I should be able to do that. For me, going from the theater world, I think any type of business is going to be males more so than women. And, TOA was no different, even though it was an acting school. There was the students, and there is the act of just going through plays and setting up shows and doing those things, the artistic things. But we were pounded in meetings, about the bottom line and about why is it not, turning over. And those are meetings with mostly men. So even then, I'd be sometimes the only, cohort that, to be like the president of the school was a male, and then there was me, and then all the other heads of all the other companies were men. And maybe there'd be a woman VP from Musicians Institute or something. So you just take those same things. When you go into the NFL, you think it's like, a bro culture, and there is sort of that, right? There's definitely that. And I think that before coronavirus, this is also one of taking it back to the beginning, some of the things that have changed so much have come now. So back then there was an understanding like you're in, you're cool, you're one of us. So there is that camaraderie that comes from we all like the same thing. But certainly when you talk about the failings in the room, like when we have those game control rooms, there was a table where it was nothing but guys, like the head guys and then the customer care guys that were like the funny, they all work in improv, they're all like struggling in their 20s and they just answer complaints, right? So it's a cool gig for them. But they're sitting at the table with the heads. And I'm just running around doing everything that I do. So for me, I learned that you just got to find your niche. Like you got to find the group that's going to see you for more than just a cool woman that likes football. And then great, it breaks up the monotony of all these guys because you definitely feel that energy. Like they want you around because they want to kind of break it up. But when it comes to like promotions and who got pulled up from seasonal to full-time, for example, I was definitely seeing a pattern that I was
Really?
like, okay. So it's like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. And then I'm just like, hey, I'm sensing a bit of a pattern here. And so I was putting that out there. But I'm telling you, like 3 years ago, people just weren't hearing it. They weren't open to it. Like
Really? So even in a few years, you see a difference?
100%, like in weeks. I'm telling you, like weeks ago. This is like
Really?
I would sit, my guys, the people that I associate with the most are that digital customer care team, the ragtag like group that was just created because they could outsource this, right? They could so totally send it to China or Thailand, wherever, have someone in a call center, India, and
Hello.
yes, and just email people, right? Sorry for your complaint, whatever. No, so they're not doing that. They're letting people have jobs. These guys mostly. I didn't want to do it because I was just like, I like what I'm doing with DAI. I'll stick with what I'm doing. I'm comfortable in it. But those guys, we all sat in a room together, and I would come in and say, "Man, I just totally got this microaggression from this babe," and they'd be like, "What? What are you talking about?" I was like, "No, she totally fronted on me because." Free t-shirts were out and she goes, did I email you? Cause blah, blah, blah. So you don't always have the shade coming to you from the guys. Sometimes it's the women around you because there's this sort of like culture of like one-upmanship and it's interesting, man.
So no
Or
matter
one-up womanship.
Totally.
So no matter how diverse it is, no matter how many, there's always going to be.
There's always going to be something, right? But the thing was, at that time, I'm telling them about this and they go, Liz, are you sure? I mean, do you really think it's because of that? Because maybe she just didn't know you and had to make sure. And I was like, no, I'm telling you. So flash forward to now, and I got to say the NFL they've been sort of really rocked by all of the social justice and all of the things that happened since George Floyd's murder.
So
and,
I would say because the NBA has taken such an open stance to allowing their players because the NBA 10 years ago they had a dress code enforced.
Totally.
The NBA has really reversed course from the way they allowed their athletes to
be a part of that narrative.
Yes, to speak their mind on things outside of their sport. Now, would you say what is the corporate environment at the NFL Network like now? Are you?
Well, it's interesting because even though in the remote setting, right, we all haven't been in rooms together, but there have been Zoom calls where things have been said that I never would have thought I'd hear.
Even on a Zoom call?
On a Zoom call, just in terms of like people being like, hey, you remember in the very beginning of the corporations being like Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, people were like, well, where are your receipts? I want to see pictures of your teams. I want to see like the breakdown. So people are like, give us concrete numbers on how many brown people or people of color or women are seasonal versus the full-time staff. We started pushing back and they're actually like, you know what? We are going to give you that information. We are going to, so there's like, they're kind of caught in a catch-22 because now we have the economic pressures of the coronavirus and the pandemic and all those constraints. But there's just been more movement and more open-mindedness in talking about unconscious bias, implicit bias.
Well,
These
sure,
are things that I said that nobody wanted to believe 3 years ago, but now they're like, I never heard that term before, Liz. I was like, actually, you did, but you just weren't ready to hear it.
Right. Or that.
Well, I think especially because before comedy, I worked at the Wall Street Journal. This was another life ago, another version of the
Sure.
Brian you see.
Sure.
And I know in the 15 years that's been, since I've set foot in a real corporate environment like that, I can imagine how many things have changed. But I know some of the people that I would work with, they were just oblivious. And when someone doesn't even know any better, they can't see. And I think
100%.
some of this
Some of it.
forced. Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah,
Some people are bigots. Some people are pieces of shit. Some people are, and they allow some of their personal beliefs to come out in an environment where you look. It's about productivity.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
about your ability to solve problems.
Sure.
It's about your ability to do your job and leave. So I guess this is what the question that I'm going at, getting at. Coinbase. Which is the online. Do you know? Are you familiar with Coinbase?
That's like a Cash App type.
Yeah,
thing?
it's well, Coinbase is similar to, but you can buy and sell Bitcoin and move Bitcoin, or other types of
Cryptocurrency.
crypto. Coinbase, which is and it is the number one company when it comes to moving, so it is a big company. Their CEO announced that no one in the corporate structure can talk about things other than business. Like if you want to have your outside views and go to a place where politics is politics and equality. Well, not equality, but politics and social justice reform is a priority and and able to discuss in the workplace. Go ahead, you go there. We will give you 4 to 6 months of severance if you no longer want to work here.
Wow.
Which I think is extremely interesting because Coinbase they have a responsibility to all the employees,
Sure.
to all the people who use it, that they provide a safe environment because God forbid you work next to someone who doesn't agree with you.
Right.
And they're constantly voicing their opinion, whatever it may be.
That's very interesting.
Yes, and what is being someone is like I said, I can see in the short time that we've talked, you keep your head to the ground. You mind your own business, but I can see that you've had to overlook things in your life just for the good of the company, for the good of your career, for the good of momentum.
Yeah, I mean, Colin Kaepernick, 100%.
So-
like that's a lightning rod to this day because you can tell that people have their feelings personally about it, but we work for who we work for, and you have to just divorce yourself of it and just go.
So what do you feel about that corporate policy? Would you prefer a corporate policy where it's open to talk about the things, or you come here, you do your work, and if you want to go, we'll literally give you the opportunity to find a better fit for yourself.
I just think that if you want a holistic company, that's just wishful thinking. You're just burying it, right? People aren't automatrons. That's like, you just want a workforce that is not going to have humanity within their walls between 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever their hours are, right? So that's just, to me, not a sustainable business practice. You can find them, you can try to weed it out, but it's just not feasible. I think what happens in the league now is that they are straddling that fence of encouraging you to voice opinion and say what you'd like to see different. They definitely know they have an issue of talent, Black talent, Latin talent, whatever, people of color leaving. And I don't mean just someone like me. I mean like on-air people have left to ESPN, and they're now answering the question now. They're trying to at least look at the question, like, what is it that is driving people away from us? So I think there's a way to do both. I think we understand that, and especially because it's a live thing, there's things that have to happen, and you can't not push a button or start the stream of the game because you're upset that Trump got reelected. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like the saddest day after 2016 election, and we got an email to us like, look, I mean, we all feel however we might feel, but we have a job to do, and we got to just do it. Sorry. And, so they've been trying to deal with that for some time, and I think that when you allow people to feel like they can espouse these things, you'll get better production out of it.
Well, I feel like it does empower some people, but I also feel like some people, and this is maybe just human nature, but some people like to be divisive.
Oh, some people do.
And that's giving freedom. You also allow people
100%.
to be divisive.
We had a Zoom, another one of these Zoom calls where they were like, hey, send us your questions beforehand. And it was an open forum to put in stuff. And mostly it was great. And then someone anonymously wrote, how do I get my Black colleagues to stop feeling victimized and be more and so people were pissed about it. And it went in Slack, and we all and then they wrote the email, we think we might have been hacked, or this was a bad character. And it's like, no, we weren't freaking hacked.
We got Zoom bombed. Someone asked a racial question.
No, it was totally seeds, but I loved it. I loved it because that's real. Don't tell me that now it's all good at the NFL or any business, because no one's a monolith.
Or
right?
anywhere.
So no one's a monolith. So I liked it. I mean, I didn't love the question. I thought, see, this is what I'm talking about. And 100% people are entitled to their feelings about it, but it made sense to me.
It sparks.
That's not the only person. I'm sure they're the only nut who was like, I'm going to write this as if they can't trace your IP address. They're going to find out. They want to know.
But I think you're, in the time that you're open-minded enough to understand that can spark conversation, and there is a bright side to things, but some people are just assholes. And you don't know what that person's intention was.
They could have just been trying to rabble-rouse. They could be totally just I'm sick of this shit. Who knows what it was, but I think you're right. It does allow for if you're gonna let this go on, then what about my side?
Yeah.
What about the fact that I don't?
What about someone who just wants to be a dick?
Yeah.
You know, and that's happened.
They might feel why can't I be?
And then this is my question for you, Richard, because Richard, before comedy,
is such a dick. No, I'm just.
Let's talk to the dick in the corner. Yeah.
No, you used to work at Yahoo.
I did. Yeah.
And I would say that would be that was a very open environment. It's from the sound of it.
Open as in how, politically?
Yeah, I guess you could. Well, but no. I guess it was
sexually.
Sexually, we had orgies
Were they
every
fluid?
morning.
Were they gender fluid?
The Yahoo mail team all fucked each other.
Wow, that's why that company broke down.
That's why people are gonna watch this show. You heard it here first.
No one was working. It was all fucking at Yahoo, dude.
What was the environment like at a company, at a monolith company like that?
I mean, no. I actually think it was everybody had to have the same opinion. I don't think there was too much diversity of opinion at all.
Oh, that's it. I guess the more that I thought about that seems right, because it is in Silicon Valley. It is
very corporate, yeah.
Very corporate, very from the same feeder system.
Yeah.
You know?
And you would think that we would have a more diverse opinion because our CEO was a woman. And it just somehow it was all just it was the everybody is liberal and you have to have the liberal opinions.
Was it Meg Whitman?
Marissa Meyer.
Right.
Yeah. So, but the thing was it was everybody had the same liberal opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no room for any opposition to that. Which is a problem too, you know?
Sure, absolutely. Would you prefer an environment like if Yahoo, if this is Richard back in the day, if Yahoo had presented you with that option, would you take the money and run?
I would say I love Trump and I would leave, yeah. And I would go do comedy for 6 months, yeah.
Now, as for you, Liz, the environment you work in, obviously you've seen change. You're obviously for more change. You like the NFL. You see yourself at this place for a little while?
I do see myself at this place for a little while. Now it's just sort of like a sticking point to me because I've laid my case plain. I'm year round. I'm not seasonal anymore, but I'm sort of in that kind of weird limbo where you're not full time, but you're here all the time. And I really like you, but the head count is frozen and I want to bring you on. So I'm in this push-pull with them. And I really felt wow, with all of this going on, what are you guys doing? I'm Black. I'm Latina. I'm of a certain age. I was seasonal. I'm the prime story that they should be promoting. And I think they are aware of that. But now they're just caught in an economic twist because there were furloughs, because there were people that still are being worked back in. Those things are kind of on a moratorium, but I like my team, right? And I like what I do. And so I want to do what the men tend to do, right? Which is stay at a place, be paid what you should be paid, and then they tend to kind of bounce. So I don't know if this is going to be like, oh, I'll retire from the network in however long that could be. But yeah, I feel now I've drawn a line in the sand, and we'll see where it goes.
So let me ask you the question about pay. That I didn't know if I was ever going to get to that. What do you think is a solution? What's a better way to go about it? Everyone's salary should be open?
There's been some question of that.
Because that causes divisiveness immediately. I don't care if it's another woman. You see, why is she getting 10 grand more?
Oh, well.
Or why should you be getting paid less than a male?
I've seen it by accident. Someone shared a spreadsheet with me that they probably shouldn't have.
Ooh.
And I saw that. I saw a particular group of people, and I was like ticked in some cases. And like, oh, well, in some cases. So, no, I don't think there should be open salaries because I think there's a lot of complexity to how you're paid, right? And then that gets into like too much disparity. But, yeah, I think that they definitely have problems. And part of the reason they don't want to share that is because there's these hierarchies. And they have to really examine, why is it that if you're a woman, then there's white women, then there's Asian women, then there's Latinas, then there's black women. So it's just sort of like, why is that like that? That can't be because it just so happens that this woman is smarter than this woman.
At all.
So there's a lot of upheaval. It's like turning a ship. So anybody who thinks that we had some Zoom meetings and it's going to be like a perfect or like, no, but it has to start somewhere. So as far as the pay goes, I think all of those things are being looked at. But none of those things
That's a tough
are going to be
question
remedied.
because money is the root of all evil, and you know how much aggravation just a few dollars can cause.
What about that fellow who decided to take his company, slash his salary, and pay everybody $75K? I can't remember the name of it, but we've all heard this. Have we seen it on Twitter?
No, I don't know
and
that.
It was like a year or two ago that everyone's like, all the conservative economists were like, this is going to tank this company. And actually it grew the company. Everyone's got a decent livable way. It's $75K. Depends on where you live, right? I don't know if it's LA. I don't know where the hell they are. But I just think doing things like that where there have been pay cuts, like directors, people have taken, like Roger Goodell said no to his contract. He's under contract. He gets paid regardless, and he said, I'm going to forfeit my annual this year. So, that's $50 million they didn't have. Now they have it back. So
well, I don't know what the right or wrong answer to salary. It's a confusing thing too, because the people at the top making the decisions are inherently going to make the same decisions based on a lot of the stuff they've been doing. So how do you change? How do you cause change for people who are so ingrained in certain hiring and paying practices that you make a lasting effect? Like, I don't, trust me, I've thought I don't like to complain about things without having a solution.
Sure.
And this one, just because it's money, it gets so divisive. And we have one more news story.
Yeah.
I feel like we've touched on all the topics I've really wanted to. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we get off to news and or onto some sports and all for you?
No.
Liz, you've been spectacular, and I'm gonna get this studio a little more dialed in. I'm gonna have you back more, and we're gonna talk more sports.
Great.
But right now, we are back in the newsroom.
I would like to add that the CEO is from Lending Tree. It was that guy.
Our man on the stick.
He knows about lending out money.
Dan Price is his name.
Thank you.
Which was super special. He donated, so giving people like normal. Okay, so the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded last night, and the Norwegian Nobel Committee decided to award it to the World Food Program.
The World Food Program.
For its efforts to combat hunger, for its contribution to bettering conditions for peace in conflict-affected areas, and for acting as a driving force in efforts to prevent the use of hunger as a weapon of war and conflict.
Now, I would have to say that...
Congratulations to them.
That's good.
Yeah.
I know Donald Trump was also up for the Peace Prize. I think that was probably a safer choice.
Well, I heard that he was
Absolutely.
just directing the vote, and he wanted them to get it, so he was like okay with it.
Re-
Oh, sure, yeah, they're fun. Yeah.
That's not, that's good. I say, Richard, have you done anything to fight world hunger today?
Gosh,
This week?
I mean, I
Did
haven't
you
eaten
eat?
that much today.
Oh.
I mean, I ate half a sausage, so
He fasted.
He fasted.
Yeah.
Excellent. Liz, do you eat meat?
I do.
You do.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah,
it's not as chic. I think
I
in
know.
pandemic, people have become more meat eaters. I don't know. This is,
So
again, has
while we're
nothing
on-
to do with world peace.
People
No,
are
but
eating
while
their
we're on the
pets.
food subject, which I'm more interested
Oh
in
gosh,
anyways,
are you again with this?
I am making
Oh, God.
enchiladas later.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
have any recommendations for me?
No, I don't.
On
make
to the
any
Tom Brady.
Okay, I'm
Tom
just-
Brady, LeBron James.
as a
Brian, this
Latina,
is
we have
new.
a question.
right. I was like,
Stick to the news. Copy that.
We get that you work at the NFL, but
News, LeBron James, Tom Brady.
Oh, LeBron. I thought something else was going on. So LeBron James and Tom Brady both walking off the field or the court
This week?
without acknowledging any other player. Now, LeBron did it while he was still in the game, and the game had not ended.
13
So they had
seconds
to
left, I
stop the
believe.
game to get somebody to come in to
Yeah.
replace him so they can finish the game, which was a huge waste of everybody's time in there.
And
now,
it was pouty. It
and-
was pouty looking.
and Tom Brady's walk-off was just not saying anything to Nick Foles, obviously because he hates him. And he
Totally.
just walked off the field and didn't say, hey, good game. I just think that
They shouldn't be
I look
saying
at
it.
these guys when they come into their games as kids. They have their headphones on. They're listening to music. They're like, we're going to play on a field. We're going to go have so much fun. Like, they love their job. And then they go there and they act unsportsmanlike. So what does that teach the kids? Not to be sportsman. Like, after every game when I was a kid, soccer, when I was in kindergarten, up to football, you always shake the person's hand, no matter how bad the beat is, no matter how much you're crying, and you don't want them to see you act like a little, a little baby.
Well, Let
I'm
me tell
just
you
saying.
who hated it. Let me tell you who hated it. The
Me.
the Hunt family, after they saw the video of Stephon Gilmore dapping up Patrick Mahomes, who then Patrick Gilmore just tested positive for coronavirus. So I
He
get
wasn't,
it.
but they interviewed Patrick Mahomes, and he said it's okay. Like, that's what you do.
No, but
that's
it's not now. I think they should.
He didn't know he had it at the time.
It's
I don't
silly. They
think.
should have just said, "Look, after this season, we're not doing that. Get your ass off the field. Don't do."
So
this
you're saying Tom
handshaking
Brady
thing."
walked off the field
No,
because
he was petty. He
Right,
said
yeah.
he had a
Yeah,
brain boo boo. He had an old man brain boo boo.
You
Like,
almost,
I'm 43.
Liz, I almost booted you after all your years of rooting for Peyton Manning. If you would have defended Tom Brady, my
no.
God.
Super petty, super petty. No, he was just like,
TB12.
I forgot what freaking down it was.
He
was
acted.
embarrassed.
Well,
he
okay.
acted 12.
Let me be. And for those of you who don't know, last night Tom Brady played Tampa Bay. Tom Brady of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played Nick Foles and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Big Johnson Nick, as they like to say. They played him, and Nick Foles beats
what's
Tom Brady once again in spectacular fashion. Coming back from a 13-0 deficit, Tom Brady had a chance at the end of the game to lead
bad
Tampa
clock
Bay with about a
management.
minute, about 70 seconds left, 73 seconds left. Had a chance to lead Tampa Bay to a victory. Takes him about halfway down the field, makes a bad throw on fourth down, starts calling another play, throwing his hand up like it's fourth down, looking for another play, realizes he made a mistake, was probably embarrassed for one.
Totally was.
We've all made mistakes, knowing the gravity of the situation.
No, I captioned a clip after the TNF, after the Thursday night games, and I was watching the end of the game, waiting for the clip. And when I heard Joe Buck saying, "Does he think it's fourth down?" I was like, "Oh, they're cutting this into the clip." And 100%, that was the end of the clip that I was like, captioning. I was like, I knew it. It was going to come down to that. He had a brain boo boo.
And that happens.
Yeah.
And and Tom
to
Brady's
be
not
honest,
infallible.
I looked at it and I was like, wasn't it third down? Like, I think it is. I questioned it too, but hey.
I actually lost money on it.
Oh.
Yeah, so let's say, yeah.
So
there's
you
no
were
way.
counting.
If going back over that game, Tampa Bay had every opportunity to win. There was a freak turnover towards the end. Things happen in football.
Which is the same thing that happened with the Chargers the week before.
My Dodgers covered, so it was a wash. That being said, back to Brian's point. If your kids are what you're worried about in this situation, if your kids are like worried that they're going to see Tom Brady walking off the field, they're fucked anyway.
Yeah.
They're totally fucked.
Yeah.
Don't stand a chance. Really, like you go back to some parenting videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Do something. Send them to the Khan Academy. They're doing great things online. Free education.
The world is much harder.
Right? Like, no, your kids are gonna run into some serious obstacles.
They're gonna
More
get bullied.
so than LeBron James walking off the court in that short little amount of time.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's just
Look, I don't know if it sends a good or bad message to anyone.
I mean,
That being said, Tom Brady fucked up, and I would have liked to seen him get on the stage, like get on the podium after and admit that. And he went and yelled at his teammates. And
Well, his offensive line. I mean, he's just not used to getting hit in the face.
Well, don't get me wrong.
a bunch
He'd
of
spend
times.
more time on his ass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
when he looked,
He did a lot of eye rolling.
He did,
Yeah.
At the when there was a few, he had a few free runs where he just had to get down.
You bought the Tampa Bay ticket. I don't. Yeah.
Well,
who was that end that kept on getting by the tackle?
The Bears end. He looked
Khalil.
great.
Yeah, what's his
Not
name?
Khalil Mack.
Was it
not
Khalil Mack. Yeah, Khalil Mack was one of them.
He is a
He
man
just couldn't
amongst
guard
boys.
him.
Yeah, he's a monster.
He's
a man amongst boys. Okay, so now that you do a lot of NFL watching, what do you think? Do you think it's because I believe all these people out on the field are premier athletes.
Yes.
I think the difference that divides the great ones is not just talent; it's the will. It's like the will, like they have a mental edge that is constantly sharpened. That I wish I could get sometimes. That I'd literally force upon myself, like by seeing. What do you think is the difference between the good and the great?
I think you're right. I mean, yeah, there's a difference between people who are good at something and people who are great at something. And I think there's another drive that kicks in. It can't just be because you're being paid a lot, because there's people who are making $100K, to get onto the team, and yet they're better than a bunch of people at the combine and a bunch of people who try to walk on. So definitely, I think there's a will there, and just a willingness to potentially be paralyzed and not care. Like there's a hippocampus low. Like you have to have this like sense of like an odd sense of this is okay. I'm just going to bash myself like a car accident like every week and see what happens in 10 years.
This podcast is like bashing myself in a car. I just so you understand.
So you're priming the
it.
pump.
I get it.
Yeah, I got you. But I think there is something there with an athlete. It's a beautiful thing when you see it all align, right? When they're at their peak. Like a Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, well, it is. It's a beautiful thing, and that's what attracts me to sports and live competition all the time. When you actually see hard work pay off and someone put everything out there, I think it's a beautiful thing. What do you got for us, Richard?
Controversial opinion here, but like, doesn't sometimes being too smart make you bad at sports? Like, here's the thing. Like, if I was watching Tampa Bay versus the Chargers, like, if I was down that hard against the Chargers, I would just be like, fuck, I'm going to lose. But somehow Brady is willing to get in there still after he's down and throw good dope pass after dope pass, right? Like, he doesn't get phased.
There's muscle memory. I think.
But it's also Brady. Understand that you're using the example of somebody who spends $500,000, $1 million a year on their body, on their
LeBron
diet.
level.
Yeah, on like one of the premier athletes who at some point in time, maybe when he was drafted, because Tom Brady didn't get drafted till the 6th round, I believe. Yeah, he developed a chip on his shoulder, and you got to have that chip, that constant, and I think even that can be pervasive in other things, even when we're talking about divisiveness and race and salary, and when you see that like people have these chips on their shoulder, and we're not all professional athletes, so it comes out in different ways, and that's why it's like at least an athlete can express it in such a beautifully physical way. Like we have to do yoga and meditate it out.
I also think it's interesting how on Monday, Thursday nights, Sunday night games are always bigger events. And so these players play harder. A team that is 0-13 could win, could beat an undefeated team on those nights because of the spotlight. And that's what you're talking about is that extra gear that they just kick it into.
And I think that goes back to Richard's question. That's the difference between the good and the great is they just want it more and they're not willing to quit or willing to accept.
I'm not surprised you lost that bet. How do you not bet against... How do you bet against Tom Brady again?
I would have taken knowing if you had scored at halftime was 13-0. We would have all whatever. Richard, what do you got? Tell me.
I'm just curious. What is the thing where you don't get phased under pressure? Like I'm very interested in that because like there's a lot of people like even in pool they get to the last ball.
Confidence.
They can't make that last ball. Yeah. So is it just pure confidence?
Well,
because I think that's what makes the difference between a great athlete.
You second my motion on this. There are some people that are just not made for prime time. When the heat is on, when it comes to that final ball, when the lights get hot,
Phillip Rivers.
They start to crack, they start to press, they start to think about things other than the ball going in the hole. And that
what is it? Is it genetics or is it training?
Oh God. Well, you got to have a psychologist in for that one. No, but there are sports psychologists that that 100%. They work with athletes all the time to get that edge, to sharpen that edge.
Because, I mean, that ability is useful in all aspects of life, not just football. That's like, hey, I'm talking to a girl at a bar. Hey, I'm trying to make this deal in a fucking room.
Richard's always trying to talk to a new girl, just so you know.
Make a deal
girl, like at a bar, you Zoom, FaceTime, direct Instagram.
Yeah. Well, that's why you have all these like sports people later on in life writing these motivational books, right? They're like, well, like, you want to know my secret? I got up at 4 a.m, and I drank an egg every day.
But then now we find out you get salmonella and you need your sleep.
Exactly.
Well, Liz, this has been an hour. Can you believe it?
No, I can't.
No, we did everything that I really wanted to cover. We have, I don't know if we solved any issues, but we touched on them.
We created more.
Yeah, well, I know.
I'm just kidding.
No, we opened up a discussion.
We touched on some
yes,
things,
and the people... The people that do listen to this, they will appreciate your perspective, and I think you are wonderful.
Oh, thank
Brian
you
Schlesinger in the newsroom, Richard Sarvate to my side. Liz Martinez, thank you so much. I hope to have you back. Yes, this is awesome. Thank you, Liz.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.